Hi, my name is Bruce Toyama, and there are two organizations here in the Capital Region that I'm affiliated with. One is Ignite You New York, where I was a co-founder and serve currently as senior intern. And for those of you who don't know what a senior intern is, I can refer you to the movie The Intern with Robert De Niro. I think it was 2015. I won't go any further than that, but if you watch the movie, you'll get the reference. The second is I worked for a local startup called Best Tech. And Best Tech was a startup that was actually the first winner of the New York State Business Plan competition in 2010, I believe. And in short, Best Tech was developing technology to make the lithium-ion batteries in your cell phones and laptops better performing, lasting longer, shorter period of time to charge and whatnot, all the things you want. Being involved in competitions like this, I believe, is an important thing for people like me who have startup experience and are interested in entrepreneurship and seeing young people be involved in entrepreneurship at an early age. I think it's an important activity to be engaged in. I think that exposure to entrepreneurship at an early age is really a core skill, because it teaches people not just about business or about the kinds of things that you would infer from watching Shark Tank, but it also teaches people a little bit about themselves and the sort of things that they like and don't like, which I think are valuable going forward into the balance of their educational careers and eventually into the workforce. Competitions like this are important in a couple different ways. There's several different layers to what I think people get out of them, but one of the things that I think that it strikes me and probably isn't talked about very much is that students get an opportunity to meet other like-minded students from different parts of the region that go to different schools and have different perspectives. And every time I've seen students come together in an atmosphere like that where they get to meet other folks, it's almost like magic, because there are connections that get made. Even though they come from different areas, they can immediately connect on certain ideas and the type of work that they're doing and the type of activities that these competitions involve the students in. Judging a team is something that I've done. Judging teams in general is something that I've done at not just the high school level, but at the university level and at levels beyond that in the past 5 or 6 years. But the thing I always look for, particularly in early stage companies, really boils down to one or two things. And a lot of it is not really related to the type of business or even the idea, because there are plenty of good ideas. A lot of it boils down to more of the human characteristics and the motivations for the founders. So the question I always ask in one way or another is, why are you doing this? And what motivated you to get started with this in the first place? If the answer is, I want to be rich by the time I'm 30 and not have to work for the rest of my life, those are the founders typically that I would refer to other programs than the ones that I'm involved with. It's not a bad thing to want to raise money and generate wealth for yourself, but generally what I find is that entrepreneurs who are motivated by something deeper are the ones that actually power through and go through all the tough stuff that you typically are going to go through to be a successful entrepreneur. So I have, in the New York State high school competition, been fortunate enough to be exposed to some really impressive young students. I remember the first year or two when I was judging in the New York State Business Plan competition format at the high school level, there were several schools that always seemed to produce very strong teams or candidates for this competition. So I wanted to get to know those schools and what they were doing, and so in downstream years we were able to do that, and that turned into some opportunities to coach some of the teams going forward. So that's been a very rewarding experience to work with these teams and see them develop over the course of a few months from developing the idea and then being able to turn that into something they could talk to in business terms with people at the culmination of these competitions. Students often ask for advice, or what are some things that they should know going forward. And I guess the one thing I would pass on, and we do this in the Ignite You program as well, is that failure is not something to be feared. It's something that it's a very powerful learning experience, and there's no shame in failing, trying something and failing. It's what you do after that really counts. So if you failed and go away crawling and don't try and attempt anything else again, that's not obviously a good outcome. But if you fail and you take what you learned from it and you use that to help you be successful in some other way, then that's a habit that will repeat itself over and over again in whatever you do. So I think being comfortable with the concept and potential for failure, which is not something that from a societal point of view we often encourage, but I think in entrepreneurship it's an absolutely critical success factor. I'm often asked if I know other people that would be interested in being involved with either judging or mentoring for these sorts of competitions. And this community is really blessed because there's a lot of people in the community that are willing to get involved. But I think it's also important to have the right perspective of what you are really trying to do, because it's about helping the teams. It's not about showing people how much you know, or being the smartest person in the room when you're trying to help young, especially high school students, right? So in many cases they're great to work with because they're clean sheets of paper. And if you're careful about how you shape the information and advice that you give them, but not do it for them, but help them understand how they can work through some of these things themselves, I think that's really what the important part is in terms of being involved, whether it's as a mentor or as a judge. But the level of interaction that you have with these folks requires, I think, sort of the right mindset. You're not talking to people who are 30 years old and have all kinds of different experience behind them. So it is really an opportunity to shape the way they think in a very positive way.